So I'm Mitali Deypurkaystha, my business called The Vegan Publisher. I went vegan in 2012, and the reason why I went vegan is my family rescued a cat that I didn't want, so I wasn't really happy when this cat turned up in my life. I just thought there was going to be fur everywhere in my home. I was right, there was fur everywhere in my home, but within a few weeks I just witnessed so much sentience. We'd never had an animal in the house before. So it was very easy for me to think, well, they're dumb, they don't really know what's going on. And it just began to dawn on me that we need to think they're dumb and they don't really know what's going on so we can carry on doing all the horrific things we do to them. And then the more research I did, and finding out that cats are not even all that intelligent, really. They don't even figure in the top 10 of intelligent animals on the planet. And we eat a couple of the most intelligent animals on the planet. We test on a couple of others who are in the top 10, and I just realized that this was wrong. So I took about 2 years fooling myself. I did the, I'll just go to humane farming methods, I'll go to organic farms and that sort of thing. And it took me 2 years to realize that I was fooling myself, that I just needed to go completely vegan. So I did, and that was 2012.
Prior to that, were you primed up for this at all, you think?
No, not at all. I mean, I grew up as a vegetarian, but only because my family are Indian, and a lot of Indians are accidentally vegetarian. Well, maybe it's not accidentally, it's a cultural thing, so it's not accidental. But it was for me in that I was brought up vegetarian because that's what my mother cooked. So, and then when I was about 13, my family decided I was old enough to make a decision whether I wanted to remain vegetarian or not. So I took about 5 seconds to decide that I'm going to go to the nearest McDonald's and have a burger. So I did, just being a rebellious teenager and that sort of thing. I was never primed for it. I lived in that denial that I think a lot of people do, which is animals are there for us to do what we want to do with them, and that they don't really know what's going on. I think that's the key thing. We want to believe that they don't really know what's going on. And if we actually believe that they feel like we do, they have family relationships, they have friendships. I recently found out that cows have friendships that last over 20 years. They have besties. So you get 2 cows will have a platonic bestie. That shows a level of intelligence and understanding and the relationships that they can have. And we're not told this sort of thing. So we want to believe that they're just these walking lumps of meat that don't really know what's going on. So when they die, they don't really feel anything, and then we feel okay about doing what we do to them. Same with testing on animals as well. So no, I wasn't primed. If you spoke to me prior to me going vegan in 2012, my favorite dish was, huge chunks of a variety of cheese with cold meats. In fact, a guy actually knew that and took me to a restaurant to give me that and asked me to marry him, and I said yes. I actually agreed to marry him because of the food that he gave me. So I was a real cheese and meat kind of girl. I wasn't primed for it at all. But once you really wrap your head around the fact that these beings feel just like you feel, they feel fear, they feel pain, they love, they fall in love, they feel sexual love, they feel platonic love. You can't do what we were doing to them. You just have to stop. So like I said, for 2 years I fooled myself. I then thought, okay, well, what if I go to farms that that class themselves as humane farms and organic farms, grass-fed beef, all that kind of nonsense. And then you just realize you're fooling yourself. There's still beings who are being brought into the world purely to be slaughtered in horrific circumstances in most cases. So yeah, I wasn't primed for it. I didn't even know that going vegan would be good for my health. I was told by my doctor and family members and friends, they were like, you're gonna have malnutrition. And I believed that. I didn't even fight that. My comeback to that was, well, if I have to choose between my physical health and my mental health, and my mental health will take a nosedive now, carrying on eating meat and consuming dairy, knowing what I know now. If I have to choose between the two, I choose mental health. I'd rather have, have physical issues, but I feel my head is doing the right thing it needs to do. That for me was the better outcome than having, being physically well, but carrying this horrible burden of what I'm doing, this horrible unethical thing that I'm doing. So when I realized after a few years it was actually good for my health, I was like, oh my God, that was just, and being here, being at the National Health Association, and it's all about, plant-based health, and I'm meeting people who are, in their 70s and 80s, and they look like, they're only like 10 years older than me. It's just incredible. But I didn't realize that, being plant-based would be healthy. I actually thought I was being unhealthy, but I was making the choice to be physically unhealthy because I wanted to look after my mental health.
You're making me think back. There was times when I went vegan, a year or two later, I thought, even if this is bad for me, I don't even care.
Yeah, that's what I did. So it's so lovely now to know that it's not even a choice. I had to make that hard choice in 2012. It's like, do I look after my physical health by carrying on, because I stupidly thought I needed to have meat for protein and B12, and I needed to have milk and cheese for calcium, and all this stuff that we're, indoctrinated into from a very, very early age. And I made that choice. And now I realize there was no choice to be made. I could help the animals and the planet and myself by going vegan. There was literally no downside to that decision.
You said you went vegan in 12. There was about a 2-year transition, yeah. Prior to that, was there ever a time you thought there's no way I could be a vegan?
I don't think I ever thought there's no way I would be vegan. It didn't even come into my brain because I genuinely didn't think there was anything wrong with it. When I was a vegetarian as a child, it wasn't a choice. It was my parents. And even then, my parents never explained to me why they were vegetarian. We just were, because we were Hindu. And a lot of Hindus just happened to be vegetarian. So they never really explained to me the ethics behind it or anything like that. So it was just what we ate. That was it. So then when I started eating meat in my teens, because everybody else was, I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. So we already stuck out like a sore thumb anyway, being, there was no other brown or black family for about a 10-mile radius or so when I was growing up. So we were the odd ones anyway. And then the fact that I couldn't join in with people and eat burgers and, that kind of stuff. So instantly when I was given the chance to decide whether I want to remain a vegetarian or not, because my parents never talked to me about the ethics of being a vegetarian, for me, it was just like, well, of course I'm going to go to McDonald's and eat a burger, because it means I'm now going to fit in a little bit more with everybody else. So no, there was no thinking behind that. And so I never thought, I couldn't be a vegan. The thought never even entered my head. I was eating food. And how can food be bad? Bad food for me growing up in the 80s and 90s was, don't eat too much chocolate. Yeah, don't eat too much. I was heavily overweight as a child. So I was really, worried about, not even just eating chocolate, but I didn't want to be seen to be eating chocolate in public. So I would, only eat chocolate in the privacy of my own home. I didn't want people to see, because then people would be like, well, that's why she's fat. Whereas actually, no, it's a hormonal imbalance, But people don't think that. They just instantly think, oh, it's because you're eating chocolate all the time. But the idea that, animal products would be bad for me, and the sentience thing hadn't come up then. So no, I never even thought of it. And growing up in the 80s and 90s, I grew up in the northeast of England. Like back then, there was, even now, Newcastle probably has, the city that I live in, probably has maybe 6 or 7 vegan restaurants. So it's certainly not like London or anything like that. And then when I was growing up, even vegetarianism was a weird thing, never mind veganism. So I'm trying to think, honestly, the first time I even heard the word vegan, I don't think I even heard the word vegan till probably mid-2000s. So only a few years prior to me actually going vegan. So it's not even something that I thought of.
It's interesting that you should say that, because sometimes people tell me, well, it's my choice. I have a right to choose what I want. And in my mind, I don't even think they're really thinking about it. So how are they even making a choice? They're just doing something that's just automatic,
Yeah.
And now they might be thinking they're making a choice because we're talking about it. But when it actually comes down to it, even prior to the conversation, they're just click word, it's just like hitting the play on the tape, They're just doing what they've been programmed to do,
I've always thought the easiest way to control somebody is to give them the illusion of choice. And that's what they've got. And that's what I had, the illusion of choice, but it's not your choice. If you've been, you're weaned off your mother's milk and then you're given cow's milk at 18 months or whenever you're weaned off, that wasn't your choice. And then you're now hooked on it because milk has got lactose in it, and cheese even more so because it's concentrated milk. So you're being addicted to something from an early age, and you're saying it's my choice to eat cheese and it's my choice to drink milk. It's not your choice because you were far too young to make that choice in the first place, and now you're addicted to something and you don't even realize the addiction. I was explaining to a couple of ladies here just early this morning, we were doing the exercise classes in the morning, and she was saying, the thing that took the longest for her to get rid of was cheese. And I said, oh, that's by design because lactose is concentrated. So think of like cocaine and then think of a wrap of crack. Well, you can probably get away with having a couple of lines of cocaine and you won't be addicted to cocaine, but you have one wrap of crack and you probably will be addicted to crack. So it's not your fault that cheese was the last thing to go. It wasn't your choice. It's by design that you were addicted. The reason why there's lactose and casomorphines in there is it's actually a good thing. Evolution, or if you believe in God, I don't, but I believe in evolution. It was designed so that the babies will want to carry on drinking the milk because the babies who don't drink the milk die. So evolution, survival of the fittest, the animals, the mammals that survived were the ones who drank their mother's milk all the time. They were addicted to it. So naturally, over time, natural selection has meant us mammals are easily addicted. And it's a good thing. Babies should be addicted. But once you're weaned off, you're weaned off. You shouldn't carry on drinking, even our own mother's milk, we shouldn't be drinking into adulthood. And certainly we shouldn't be drinking another species' milk, because that makes zero sense to me. I'm of the generation, I remember in the 80s, we had this huge advert on TV at the time, and it was breast is best. And that was the phrase, breast is best, breast is best. And it was all about, because at the time there was a lot of milk, sort of powdered milk substitutes. And these companies were trying to say that their milk is better than breast milk. Trying to get women to not breast milk and instead use their product to feed their baby's milk. And then there was a huge scandal, and then the government found out that actually, this Frankenstein milk can't be obvious. Now we just
Franken milk.
Now we laugh at it. Now we think, well, of course it wasn't. But back then, there was a lot of women who chose not to breastfeed their babies because there was all these adverts in the UK saying this powdered milk from this company is better, fortified with vitamins and minerals and all this kind of stuff, better than their breast milk. So they wouldn't feed their babies and would be giving them this powdered milk with water added in and turned into a milk. So then there was a huge scandal, and then, the UK government said, no, you can't do that. So they banned it outright. So now you don't see any adverts. Now they have something called follow-on milk. So for women who want to stop breastfeeding after a certain number of months, but the baby still wants milk, you now have follow-on milk, which I still have an issue with, but they're not allowed to now market to new mums who have just had a baby. So then they had this huge campaign to redress the issue. They had this huge campaign, which was breast is best. And there was this huge campaign about how breast milk is naturally, beautifully designed for the human child. No scientist will be able to replicate how perfect mother's breast milk is for the human child. And then when I say to people, so what do you think cow's milk is perfectly designed for? Not for us. Even as a baby, it wasn't designed for us, and certainly not as an adult. But yeah, there you go.
After you went vegan, what kind of physiological or mental or emotional changes did you experience?
Well, physically, I actually made myself a little bit ill because I did the typical thing, when you go vegan, you just get vegan junk food. And that can't be, yes, you're helping the animals, you're helping the planet, well done you. But, you're not helping yourself. And if you're not healthy, then you're not around to help the animals and the planet, do you know what I mean? So, I kind of made myself ill because I was just eating loads of vegan junk food. So that took a while. I needed to kind of reteach myself how to cook vegan. That was interesting coming from an Indian background. We do like putting, we love paneer, which is like an Indian cheese. Ghee goes into everything. We love milk. Dairy is the big thing for us. You'll meet a lot of Indians who don't really eat meat. They don't really eat fish. Eggs maybe here and there, but not much. But dairy is in everything. And it's even used in forms of worship in temples. So it's intrinsically linked into our culture. So to replace that was quite difficult. Mentally, I felt amazing. And that's something I wasn't expecting. Actually, incidentally, one of my authors is writing a book currently about that, about the spiritual and mental health benefits of going vegan. A lot of the times we go vegan, either we do it for physical health, or we're doing it because we want to reduce the impact on the planet, or because we've become animal advocates and we actually feel and love animals and we don't want them to go through what they're going through. She's found out that when you really do live your truth, there's something freeing about it. You become really, and I get where she's coming from. Again, it's a benefit that I didn't expect when I went vegan. But knowing that I am living my truth, I know people nowadays know enough, they've seen enough tiny snippets of clips on YouTube or TikTok or wherever they're getting, their content from. They know there's something is awful happening to animals. It's not like a few decades ago where they literally had no idea how pigs are slaughtered, how cows are actually milked, how their calves are taken away from them, within 24 hours of them being born. They literally didn't see that. We now live in this media age where even if you hate vegans, in fact, actually, if you think about it, with social media algorithm, if you hate vegans, chances are you will see more vegan stuff on your feed. So if you hate vegans, you're going to see more of us, You will have seen, and I've seen it in my friends who are not vegans, and they'll instantly be like, no, I don't want to see it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what do you mean you don't want to see it? It's like, no, I don't want to see it. Well, think about it. If I told you, let's watch a video on how to grow a carrot, you might be saying, oh my God, this sounds like I'd rather watch paint dry. This sounds really boring. But you wouldn't have that reaction. If you have a reaction that's like, oh my God, I don't want to see it, you know deep down something's not right. And then you're still consuming that stuff. That has got to have a mental and spiritual effect on you. So I would say, going vegan, one of the nicest things that's happened is me knowing that I'm doing my absolute level best to not hurt any other beings. It's living your truth. I know it sounds very cliched, and dare I say it, you're going to hate me for saying this, a little American. British people don't like sounding American. But it's true. A lot of the things that you guys say might be very cliched and make us want to hit our heads, but it's true as well. Living your truth and really coming from a place of I'm not going to cause any harm, whether that's to animals, whether that's to other human beings, whether that's to the entire planet as a whole. It's freeing. It's definitely freeing. Because we're given this burden from a very early age, we're told you have to drink milk for calcium, you've got to eat meat for protein. Where are you getting your B12 from if you don't get it from meat? And the thing is, when you're given a burden from such an early age, you don't even realize it's a burden. How do you know you're carrying a weight of something if you've always had that weight? That's just what you weigh. You have no idea. So it's only when you then shift it and you get rid of it and you feel free and you think, oh, I had this burden on my shoulders this entire time. And I realized for many years, I was vaguely aware that something wasn't quite right, because I didn't want to watch any videos about how, animals were slaughtered. I didn't want to see it, and yet I'm eating it. So now I can feel free knowing that I'm not contributing to that.
Yeah, it is very liberating, for sure.
It's very liberating.
Some people say, oh, it makes me feel lighter just being, eating this way makes you feel lighter. But then also the mental clarity and living with integrity and continuity instead of the dissonance that people are living with, I don't know that they're aware of it at all.
That's what I mean. It's a burden that they've had from childhood. And if you have something that's been given to you from childhood, you don't even realize that you're carrying it until it goes. And then you go, it's a bit like I've got a couple of friends who suffer from chronic pain, and it's almost like they still feel the pain, but because they're living with it day in, day out, it becomes just who they are.
Yeah, and you think it's normal. Goes. And you think it's normal. It's like you almost expect it to happen.
Yeah, so that becomes their old normal, because that's just how they are. And then they'll go and see an amazing osteopath and they'll be like, I had no idea my spine was curved that much. But now it's like, oh my God, I'm taller. And then suddenly their digestive system is better, because they're not scrunched over anymore. It's like, oh my God, I eat better now and I don't get constipation anymore. But that's just been their reality.
Something else that I've been kind of evolving toward, and usually in the health realm, we talk about like pillars of health. A lot of times they're very typical things like getting enough sleep, exercise, eating properly. A lot of times they miss out on this concept of like what's the core thing that makes all of that even viable or possible, and that is, to me, love. Like if you don't have self-love, how are all these other things going to work? How are you going to be able to properly heal or prevent a disease? And what you're talking about, this mindfulness, to me, it's something that could potentially prevent, or one of many things, it's a quintessential thing as well, that we need to have this peace and relaxation. What you're describing to me, it's just like this contentment that allows for the body to relax and heal and focus on healing rather than being stressed all the time. I don't even know if people are aware of the stress when they're consuming something that has an inflammatory response, and then on top of that, petting a cat and eating a chicken
at the same time. Yeah, having a chicken sandwich and then stroking the cat, and you can fool yourself most of the times, but not all the times. It's always there. I just remember just burying my head in the sand and not really thinking about it, but it was always there, because like I said, if you prior to 2012. If you'd said, okay, well, I've got this video showing a pig being slaughtered, I would be like, no, I don't want to see that. So it's there. Because otherwise, if you were completely unaware, you'd be like, okay, cool, let's see this. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You would.
I want to see where's
like,
my food come from.
I want to see where my food comes from. I want to see what happens with this pig, And maybe because I remember being told many years ago, I've since found out it's nonsense, is that they're stunned. So when they're killed, they don't feel anything because they've been stunned or something like that. I don't know if that happens in the US. Definitely does not happen in the UK. I've now seen the videos. They do not stun the pigs. They do electrocute them, but that's painful to them. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they're not stunning them. That's something that I was fed, another myth, that they're stunned. So when they're killed, they're not feeling anything. They're completely in a coma. That's not true at all. If that was the case, I would have said, okay, we'll see it then. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even if it's just a stunning bit, then you don't show them, slicing up the pig. But even then, I'd be like, no. So there's a little bit of you that I don't. I almost sort of like think of it as like when you get really, really drunk and you don't know what you're doing. But there's always a tiny bit of you that never gets completely drunk, and you can always somehow find your way home. It's like that, you can fool yourself. There's a tiny bit of you that you can't fool, and that's a bit that reacts and goes, no, I don't want to watch that video. Because if you're really fooled, then you'd be like, okay, cool, let's watch it. So what you said before, about mindfulness, being able to actually say, that's who I am now, and I don't have to do that. I don't have to have that cognitive dissonance. I don't have to weigh this tiny bit of me that's saying something's not quite right here, and then drown it out with the rest of, everything is fine. I don't have to have that battle with myself anymore now. I'm just living as I am, as I truly should be. Yeah.
What kind of challenges, though? Culturally, has there been any challenges, and how might you have overcome those?
Interestingly, I would say more with my Indian community than with the wider community. When I went vegan in 2012, that did cause some issues. I was living in a part of England that isn't it's not like London. Like London is hugely vegan friendly. I lived in a small city. I remember I was working at the time for a bank, and my team leader wanted to, take us all out, her entire team out for a team night out. And then she got really grumpy because you had to ring a load of restaurants and try and find one that would do a vegan dish, so as if that was my fault, I did actually say I don't have to come to a team night out. I'd much rather go home and watch Netflix, but it was like a mandatory team night out that we had to go to. So things like that, they were quite good. I have heard of some of my friends who've been bullied quite badly when they went vegan. I had one friend who was tricked into eating pork. Yeah, I know, disgusting. Thankfully now, since 2020, in the UK, veganism is now a protected characteristic. So it is seen as seriously as accidentally tricking a Muslim person into eating pork or a Hindu person into eating beef. It's seen as seriously now. Unfortunately, this happened to her before 2020, but now we can actually sue and it'll be taken as seriously as racism is taken. So yeah, well done for the UK for actually getting that put through. So that was early 2020, I believe, when that law came in. Nothing like that has happened to me, not that I'm aware of anyway. So I've been quite lucky. Definitely within my Indian community, I've got a house in India. I've got huge family who live in that house. And definitely when I go over there, Indians, I speak for not just Indians, Asians in general, love is shown through food. So when I go to, say I went to your home and you said, hey, I've got some food for you. And I'd be like, you know what? I've already eaten. You wouldn't take offense to that. You'd be like, okay, cool. You sure? Yeah, no problems. Do you want a glass of wine? Yeah, I'll have a glass of wine. And then we move on. In Indian culture, and I lived in Thailand for a while. I've traveled extensively in Asia. So I've noticed not just an Indian thing, it is an Asian thing. Love is shown through food. So if you were Indian, or Thai, or Vietnamese, or Cambodian, and you say, hey, I've got food, and I say, I've already eaten, they'd be like, yeah, you can eat some more. And they'd be like, no, seriously, I'm not a cow, I don't have 4 stomachs. They're like, no, eat. And they stop giving you a plate and piling food on as you're saying no. And the problem here was now they were piling on things that I couldn't eat. So whereas before I would just watch my stomach expand, but I would just put up with it because it's like they're showing me their love. Now I had to refuse the food. And that is a big no-no in Asian culture, because it's like you're refusing love. So that was a big deal. And they've got it now. I mean, I'm now coming into my 12th year of being a vegan. So they now know I'm not going to eat those things. So they make things that are vegan and make sure there's no ghee. That's a big thing. They use clarified butter to cook in. It's like, no, use oil. Please use oil. Don't use clarified butter. They know now not to put milk into everything and cream into everything. But the first few years were difficult, and they would take it personally because of that link with love and food. So they felt that I was rejecting them. It's like, I'm not rejecting you whatsoever. I'm not rejecting your love. I'm not even rejecting your food. Just don't put animal stuff into my food, and then you can pile on the food as much as you like. So that was quite difficult, because I don't think they got it, And also I think what they really struggled with was they know I'm atheist. So there was no religious belief behind it. So, they're kind of vegetarian because of this whole cultural and religious background. And yet I'm atheist, but then I'm now, they call it purer. I'm purer than they are, and yet I have no religion. So I think they struggle with that. So then they did feel it was like, well, it's us, isn't it? You just don't want to accept our love. And so it's got nothing to do with that. I do accept your love. You're my family. I love you all to pieces. But yeah, that was kind of difficult.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome all that?
Time's a good one. I think people expect you. We're all used to it. We live in a world now where we try something. We go on some diet and we do it for 2 months and it doesn't work. Or we'll go on a health kick of some sort, or we'll try a new program, or I'm going to learn how to speak a language, and we'll do Duolingo for about 6 months and then we'll give up. So people are used to people giving up. So I think longevity, when you stick at it, and I think the year point is a really good point. When you've been doing something for a year, people kind of go, okay, you're doing this for long term now, isn't it? So I think that just sticking to your guns and just letting people know I am vegan and I'm not going to eat this and this and this, and just sticking to your guns and doing that. And the other thing is, I think being compassionate. I think what happens with a lot of people when you tell them you're vegan, even when you're not blaming them, they think you are saying that you're better than them. To one extent, we are. So we are better than them, but not better in the sense.
But we're not saying that.
Yeah, we're not going to say that. We are better than them, but not in the way they think we mean. We're not saying we're better than them as in we're more intelligent than them. We're better than them as we've evolved beyond where they are, but they can also evolve beyond that point. So I've noticed being compassionate and definitely making people feel that it's not their fault that they're addicted to cheese. It's not their fault that they believe they have to eat meat. I think that is a key way of getting them on side. I think once you get down this road of you're wrong, you're a bad person for eating meat. I mean, no human being on the history of this planet has been belittled into changing their ways. Even if a light bulb has gone off in their brain, they're not going to let you know about it. They're gonna argue their point, and that's just how human beings are. I've never met anybody who said, yeah, someone made me feel so bad, I changed my ways. That's not how it works. Human beings are inspired into change. And the only way you can make somebody feel inspired is to feel like, well, I mean, it's the old saying, your enemy and my enemy, that makes us friends. So if you have a common enemy, and the common enemy is animal agriculture and food companies. So I've noticed when I talk to people and say, I'm vegan because I actually did it for animal sentience, but just be aware that animal agriculture is addicting you to certain things and it's going to kill you and you're going to have a horrible life and it's not your fault. That really, really works. And I've noticed people then don't want to attack me for being vegan. They go, okay, tell me more. I want to know more about that. So that has been a good thing. The other thing I do is I've become, in the last few years, I've become quite open about things that I have to deal with when I was younger. So I dealt with a lot of, I did deal with a lot of racism. I grew up in the 80s in England, which was nowhere near as cosmopolitan as it is now. I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. So I did deal with a lot of racism. But actually, I dealt with far more colorism, which is being ostracized for the color of your skin within a race. Whereas racism is like one race looking down on another race. This is within one race. And I'm several shades darker than most people, all of my family, basically. So that was seen as wrong. And, one of my earliest memories, I think I was maybe about 4 or 5, and I remember some guy who I think I may be related to, but I'm not sure, telling my father, make sure she's educated, because with her being dark, if she's educated and she becomes a doctor, then someone will want to marry her. But obviously I wasn't marriageable anymore now, which is very confronting when you think about that age. I wasn't even sure what marriage was. But kids are not stupid. They're aware when something isn't quite right. They may not be able to tell you what's wrong, but they know when something's not right. So I grew up thinking that I wasn't right and I didn't fit in even with my own family. And I've been able to relate that to speciesism, which is what we do. If you think about it, I was labeled, I was labeled by my, wider Indian community as not good enough to grow up and be married because I was too dark. I was labeled by my white neighborhood as those strange Indian family that we don't really know what to do with. And isn't that what we're doing to animals, And it's completely arbitrary as well. It doesn't even make sense. If we actually practice speciesism in the form of looking at which animals were intelligent and which ones weren't, and then did a sliding scale, and we said, we'll eat the not so intelligent animals and we'll test on those, but the really intelligent ones, we'll treat them with respect because they're like us. That would make, in some sick way, that would make some sort of sense. But it doesn't even make sense. Like, pigs are more intelligent than dogs, but dogs we absolutely adore. Kids we eat. Not kids. Did I say kids? Yeah, let's not eat kids. But I do see them. The reason I see them as kids is I found out a few years ago that the average pig just before slaughtered has a sentience of either a 3 or a 4-year-old human child. So whenever I see, loads of, so that was actually, that's
Freudian slip.
Yeah, it's a Freudian slip. But yeah, whenever I see loads of pigs, I see a kindergarten or I see a nursery. In my head, I'm seeing human kids, and it horrifies me that they're going to be killed, Rats. We love our cats. I've got 2 rescue cats, absolutely adore them, already missing them. I've got a sister who's actually sending me daily pictures of my cats while I'm in the US because I miss them so much. Rats, more intelligent than cats. And yet we test on them. Or we treat them like vermin and we give them loads of chemicals to kill them off. It's completely arbitrary. And if you think about it, that is what racism is. That is what colorism is. That's what homophobia is. That's what transphobia is. It's basically boxing people up and saying they're lesser than you over something they have zero control over, such as their skin color or their gender when it comes to misogyny, or when it comes to all of these things. It comes from speciesism. And that's exactly what we're doing to animals. And when I talk about that, then I can see people going, I've never thought of that. And again, that helps me. Instead of attacking me for being vegan, they go, tell me more about that, because I've never linked speciesism and why you're vegan to racism, misogyny, homophobia. I've never made the link. And it's like, it's the same thing. The way we categorize animals is why we categorize human beings, and that allows a world for racism and misogyny and transphobia and homophobia and all other kinds of phobia and isms to exist.
It all fits under the umbrella of violence, essentially.
Yeah. If you can categorize animals, you can categorize humans, because we are animals. And that's what we do. We're categorizing. And like I said, it's arbitrary. There is now some amazing text that is now in the public domain. You can get them on Google now. Basically, I think this is worldwide. If you print something, a book, and then it's after 100 years it goes into the public domain unless you claim it. So you can now see text and books that were written in the 1800s and the 1900s, and they're talking about Black people, and they're talking about this text that actually says things like, well, we have to look after them because they couldn't cope on their own. We give them work, and that gives them a sense of purpose, and it's the right order of the world. Black people should be enslaved because they're unintelligent. They don't have the same ability to think the way we do, as in white people. Brown people were seen as more similar to white people, so we were never enslaved. We were put into servitude. So again, so we were more intelligent than Black people, but not as intelligent as white people. So we were in the middle somehow. And obviously all of that has been blown out of the water. Your skin color's got literally nothing to do with your IQ. Literally nothing. I mean, yeah, you can be dumb and you can be Black, and you can be dumb and be brown, but you can be white and dumb as well. It's got nothing to do, it's completely arbitrary. And the same thing if you look at a lot of the old texts again in public domain with men talking about how women should be given the vote, and because they're overly emotional and they don't have the brain capacity. They should be doing things like flower arranging and cooking, and that's what they should be doing. They shouldn't be thinking about things like politics and how a country is run, and it's exactly the same thing. Again, what anatomy you have between your legs has got nothing to do with your intelligence. I'm sure there are women out there who are only interested in flower arranging and cooking, and that's cool. But there's also women out there who are interested in stem cell research. And you get men like that as well. It's got nothing to do with your anatomy. And if you then look at what we're doing with animals, it's exactly the same thing. It makes no sense. We're not even doing it on intelligence. We've just decided that this animal is food, this animal is a test subject, this animal is vermin, this animal is hunting. In the same way we did that with women, and still sadly do that with women, in the way we do that, what the trans community are having to deal with at the moment. I don't know what's happening in the US, but in the UK, there's huge movement at the moment. There'll be these biological men who will become women and then start because they'll be able to get into women's toilets, they will be able to attack those women. I'm just thinking, well, yes, there will be some trans people who are criminal, just like there are some Indian people who are criminal, just like there are women who are criminal. The point is that just because you're trans is not going to make you a criminal. There's always going to be a small proportion in any group of people that they're so damaged they're going to hurt other human beings. But that's got nothing to do with it's got nothing to do with the fact that they're trans. It's like, for example, if you're mugged by an Indian person and then you call me and expect me to explain, and it's like, what's it got to do with me? Apart from the fact that person was Indian and I'm Indian, why do I have to explain that person's actions? They were obviously a bad person and they wanted to victimize you and they mugged you, but I shouldn't have to answer for that person. That's a whole other human being. So it's the same thing. And again, it's that categorization. And it's completely arbitrary. It makes no sense. I always say it's a bit like borders, country borders. They don't exist. We've created countries. They don't actually exist. We shouldn't even need passports to wander around this planet. It's our planet. We should be able to wander around as we see fit. But then we went around and created borders. They don't actually exist. They exist in our heads only. It's something I believe in, and I've started now speaking on stages, and my main talk is all about, this sort of philosophy that I have, that speciesism is the bottom block of the Jenga tower of bigotry. You remove what we're doing at the moment is we're having these conversations a few years ago with Black Lives Matter. We're having these conversations about racism. We're having these conversations about misogyny with the Me Too movement. But the reason why we're stuck is because we're trying to get rid of bigotry from the top down. So we're attacking racism and we're attacking transphobia and homophobia. Whereas if we just remove speciesism at the bottom, the whole thing topples over.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you look into the eyes of a cow and see a being that's just like you, that just wants to live and flourish and love and have sex and have family and all the things that you want? How can you then look at a human being and see any difference? You look at a trans person and you'd be like, yeah, you're just like me. You just happen to be trans, I just happen to be cis, but cool. You meet someone who is queer and I'm straight and I'd be like, cool, you're still the same as me. Just this one thing that's slightly different, who cares? I meet someone who's a different color than me, it's like, cool, it doesn't matter. All you then see is similarities instead of differences. But we're trying to get rid of bigotry from the top down. And that's why we're having so many, we're stalling, you know, I mean, we can't get to the bottom, whereas it's just get rid of the speciesism, the whole thing falls over.
Do you think you could be with somebody who isn't vegan?
No. That's an emphatic no. Absolutely no. Well, first of all, I've got to kiss that mouth, so I don't know where that's been. Sorry. So from a philosophical point of view, I would say that veganism is probably the closest I've been to having a religion. I'm atheist. I think I was agnostic before that. I was always quite ambivalent to religion. And then my dad died in 2007. And for some people, death actually makes you more religious. It had the opposite effect to me. For me, I realized that having this belief that there was another place that people went to, what it does is it makes you lazy. You kind of have this attitude of, well, I'll see that person some other time. Whereas now I know my time is finite. I do my best. I have a mother. She's going to be 70 this year. She's doing really, really well. So I hope I get to have her for a few more years yet. But when I can, I spend time with her, because I don't know if she's going to be waiting for me anywhere else. You know, I don't know if there's a heaven. I don't know if there's reincarnation. So I'd rather believe there isn't anything, and then I treat this life as the main event. And I do get the feeling that a lot of people treat it as like a dress rehearsal. And and then there's going to be this amazing thing that happens later, and they're going to meet all of these people that have died previously. What if you don't? You're screwed then. So you might as well, live your best life now. So I became atheist after my dad died, and I would say veganism is pretty much the only thing that has been close to religion. It really, it's now my business. I'm now the vegan publisher. So I'm working with vegan and plant-based and ethical professionals and helping them write books so they get on TV and on podcasts and radios and get the message out to as many people as possible that we're going to die as a species unless we become vegan. So it informs my business. It's how I make money. It informs my morals, my ethics, my everyday, how I live my life every single day. So it's a bit like having a devout Catholic. They wouldn't marry. It just wouldn't work. I mean, whenever I've seen interfaith marriages, it's because both people are kind of ambivalent to their religion. So I've seen like a Christian marry a Muslim because the Muslim isn't really all that bothered about Islam, and the Christian doesn't really go to church apart from, maybe when there's a wedding, and that's about it. And then it works. But I've never seen a devout Catholic with a devout Muslim, or a devout Muslim with a devout Hindu, because how would that work? It wouldn't, they would have these opposing views. How would that work? So for me to be with a non-vegan, how is that going to work? It's not like I'm on a diet. It's not like I'm on the Atkins diet and my fella's deciding to not be on the Atkins diet. This is my whole way of thinking and being. How do I be with a guy who doesn't get that?
Yeah, the thing about religion, though, I hate it when people, they equate it to a religion or being self-righteous or something. I don't know. It's like, aren't religions typically based on metaphysical phenomenon? Veganism is based on tangible facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because we're so passionate about it, but I think people want to equate to it because, maybe they're seeing the passion. When you see, like a born-again Christian, they have this passion, and then we're passionate about what we believe in. So maybe they're equating it.
Or whatever,
Yeah, I think they're equating it to that, but absolutely it is different because we're not basing it on evidence.
But your enthusiasm is equivalent. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing. So I'm like, I'll take that. If you think, that I'm, trying to save people, I am trying to save you. You're grateful so-and-so, but I'm trying to. So thank you for the compliment. I think you thought you were trying to insult me, but I'm actually complimented. It means that I'm passionate, really.
So you're a publisher.
Yes.
Yeah, and tell me about that.
Well, I'm a former journalist, and I used to be a copywriter and a ghostwriter. And then I started to teach people how to write books. That was back in 2018. But then, stupidly, I never even thought of marrying the veganism into my business. I don't know why. Now it just seems obvious, but I guess I just saw veganism as something that I did in my personal life and it had nothing to do with, my business. So I never really thought of it from that point of view. And then the idea I started to meet all of these vegan businesses and even the ones who weren't vegan, but sort of getting there, ethical, sustainable business owners and nonprofits. And I just thought these people have the best stories, and I can always tell when someone's greenwashing because they don't have enough material for a book. It's not good enough. So I can tell straight away when someone is doing greenwashing. So I'm working with the best people. And I thought, I really need to nail my colours to the mast, really. And I was scared because I just thought, what if I put people off? But since I rebranded as the vegan publisher in 2021, and since then I've doubled my business. So I have put people off. I've got a few trolls. Lovely. Gotta love the trolls. But what it has done is it's put off the people I don't want to work with. And it's turned on the people I do want to work with. So niching down really, really works. And again, it's now I now see, as a vegan, I think even if you don't go on marches, even, you may not be with Extinction Rebellion or any of these big, protest groups, but even just being vegan and choosing not to spend money on animal products, that is a form of activism. But I now realize that doing what I do, that's really taking it to the next level. Because by being vegan, it's great. I always want to encourage anybody who's vegan, I keep doing it, you're wonderful. But at the same time, you're kind of saying, what you're doing is saying, I'm not going to have any part in this. And I'm going to do a little bit by not spending money. But otherwise, you're not really doing anything for the movement, if you think about it. It's a bit like, someone's getting mugged in front of you and you're going, well, I'm not mugging you, so I'm okay. So I'm just going to carry on walking. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, at least call, 999, or here it's 911. I have to remember that, different emergency number. At least do something. Someone's being mugged. I mean, if you're too afraid to actually step in and do something, fair enough. But, do something. Don't just walk away and say, well, I'm not mugging the person, so it's okay. And if you think about it, as a vegan, it's wonderful if you are. But if you're not then kind of advocating it in some way, you're kind of being that person that says, well, I'm a good person because I'm not doing it. But I'm not doing anything more apart from just abstaining from the bad doing. Does that make sense? And I realize that now becoming a vegan publisher, I'm now helping people get into the media, get into newspapers, get on stages, do keynote speaking events, who are now gaining a huge audience, and more people are understanding they need to become vegan. For whatever reason, whether you love animals or whether you don't give a crap about animals, but maybe you love the planet and you want to make sure your grandchildren have a planet to inherit, or because of your own health and it's failing and you realize that you've been fed a load of lies all of your life and you need to take charge of your health. Whatever reason, I don't really care how you get into the movement, just get into the movement. But yeah, I now see my business as my activism. It is my activism. And I also I donate to publishing deals to nonprofits every year. So I help nonprofits write books so they can get more donors, more sponsors, so they can raise the money that they need. So yeah, I love it. And again, it's that next level. We were talking earlier about living your truth and, when you don't have to have any cognitive dissonance and all that kind of thing. That's stepped up even further when my business became part of my ethics as well. Because now it's no longer just something I do in my personal life. It is who I am. And I'm now putting the limelight on people who can take the movement to the next stage.
Awesome. Yeah, I love how you're using your all here, how you are being who you are and letting that pervade through everything you do.
Everything. And I love it. Like even I'm giving away. So here at the NHA conference, I'm a big believer in, I hate going to conferences, when you go back home with a bag of crap. You know what I'm talking about? Like they give you like stress balls, loads, usually plasticky crap as well, which is not good either. And you don't want the stuff. And you get loads of cards and leaflets which just end up in the bin. So I thought, well, I'm not going to give out business cards. I'm not going to do anything boring like that. I found a supplier in Turkey who can do these seeded pencils. So you use it as a pencil, and then when it's too short for your hands, you can plant it and it grows into a plant. And the cardboard is recycled paper as well. But guess what? Oh, let me show you. Single-use plastic. So straight away I was speaking to my supplier and just saying, well, let's go with the single-use plastic because I was flying out from England to Ohio. So we're going to have to do this. But I've already got her on the case, like we need to use something else. I'm the vegan publisher. I can't be giving out something which is, this is sustainable, and the paper is sustainable, it's recycled, but now single-use plastic. So I've given out 200 cases of single-use plastic. So she's now gone off to see if she can find something that is, compostable or something that we can wrap it in.
Does it have to be wrapped?
Well, no, it does, because I'm bringing them from England, and that was a problem. I was worried about this moving out and breaking and that sort of thing. So we do need to wrap it in something, but not single-use plastic. But you see, I wouldn't even...
Maybe like a little hemp rope or something.
Something. We need to think of something that's sustainable or compostable or something. But I love that most people won't even think of that. Like literally be like, oh, they're cool pencils, and that'll be it. And they won't even be thinking, but hang on, plastic. So what do we do about that? Great, the paper's sorted out, it's recycled, but we need to do better. So it's nice living a life where, living your truth, you're always thinking ahead and going, how do I do better here? I was giving out these goodie bags. I was a sponsor at VegFest Brighton in England. I was one of the sponsors, and I was giving out goodie bags to all the stall holders. And everything in there was sustainable, apart from cable ties, because I was giving out to stall holders. So I wanted to give them like an emergency pack of things that can go wrong in your stall. And one of the things that goes wrong in your stall is that your poster or your banner starts falling down, and you need a cable tie to keep it up. I couldn't find any sustainable cable ties. But since then, a gentleman got in touch with me because he saw me on social media saying, we need to have sustainable cable ties. I've given out all of this single-use plastic to stall holders that I'm not happy about because I'm the vegan publisher. He got in touch with me. He's like, we create sustainable, compostable cable ties. So I love that. I love the fact that I'm constantly always thinking, how do I do better? How can I lessen my impact here? And, that's something that I would never have thought of before. So, people think like, oh, my God, it must be hard because you're always trying to be right. It's like, is it hard trying to improve yourself for the rest of your life? Surely that's a good thing. That's a good way to live your life.
It's a fun challenge.
Yeah, that every single day you're trying to be better. Why is that? How's that even a task? That's a good thing,
Stimulating.
Yeah, I think so, anyway.
I have a friend who's really been moving me in that minimalistic, no waste direction.
Yeah.
And she's vegan from birth, and grocery shopping. She'll bring her own bags. She'll only pick stuff that is unpackaged, whole foods.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any excessive furniture or anything. It's just really so minimalistic and so simple. And it's like, I'm really wanting to purge all my hoarding, and all that, and just kind of live more simply now after being exposed to that. And it helps me think things through, because it really isn't that much harder to shift into a no waste direction.
And I think what we were talking about before about feeling that lifting, I think we will both be lifted even further because I still have a lot of crap. I don't do minimalism all that well, but I know people like that, and I do think, I need to actually look into that more.
It's so peaceful, it's so good.
I can imagine just not having all of this, stuff around you. So that's probably the next level I need to go to. But to me, it excites me. I don't see this as like a task. I see this as this evolution that I'm just going to be on for the rest of my life, and I'm going to die imperfect. I'm never going to reach perfection. But I'd rather die trying than give up.
No doubt, yeah. Now, you want to throw that back at me?
You'll probably be able to. So it's not just me then. It's like a boomerang. It kind of has a curve. That's interesting. It curves.
So you mentioned earlier on that your diet was pretty disastrous, I guess, in the beginning, for lack of better words.
I was just eating because I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to cook vegan. So I was going out and eating vegan burgers and lots of chips, or you guys call it French fries. We call. I had a conversation with a couple of ladies, and I was talking about chips, and they were like, and I was talking about salt and vinegar chips and prawn cocktail chips, and they were going and crisps, and they were going, what? Well, and then I said, French fries, and I've even started saying elevator instead of lift while I've been here. I've only been here 3 days, and I'm saying elevator instead of lift. Nice. So I'm getting there. I'm going to annoy some British people when I get back. They'll be like, what? You're talking American, stop doing that. What were we talking about?
No, it's just now you're eating healthier, I hope.
Oh yeah. I've learned to cook, and I moved in with my mother when my dad died, so we cook together. I'm the oldest of four, so in Indian families, the oldest assumes responsibility when the breadwinner dies. So she's kind of with me for life. So that's my mom. You want me? You're gonna have to have my mom with you as well. She's moving in as well. So we cook together, and it's fantastic. But 2012 when I went vegan, there wasn't many vegan places, and now it's actually pretty good. You can go to a non-vegan restaurant and they would have usually at least a couple of vegan options. Then the vegan option literally was a bowl of fries, or chips as we call them, but a bowl of fries. So I was living on fries, which can't be good for me. Yeah. I mean, potato's great for you, but fried potato, not so great for you.
I did the same thing. I think most people do.
I think we've all done it.
Yeah. So, but now what is eating like? What's a day eating like for you?
Well, my mornings...
An ideal one.
Actually, I do this pretty much, apart from at the moment I'm traveling, so it's very difficult to stick to any kind of routine when you're traveling. But my mornings are really, really good. I've got this sort of philosophy that if you get your morning right, even if the rest of the day falls to crap, you got your morning right, that to me. So what I do is in the morning, I always have 500 milliliters of water and lemon. It was one of my authors that taught me this, that, even though lemon is acidic, once it goes inside your body, it goes into alkaline. And you need to keep your body naturally alkaline. And most of us are walking around with naturally acidic bodies. Now, we're going to be okay, better than people who are eating animal products. They will have highly acidic bodies. But even as a vegan, if you're eating processed food and stuff like that, your body's going to be acidic. So if you drink lemon juice first thing in the morning, you're putting your body into an alkaline state. And then I have a whole stalk of celery juice. Again, that's really good for digestion. And then I will have like a rainbow fruit salad. It's usually berries. So I try to get blueberries in there because blue, blackberries, raspberries, grapes, green grapes to get the green in there, and a banana. So that is my morning, and I eat really well. And then if I'm having a good day, then I'll be eating, in the lunch and dinner, I'll be usually having curry, but we do it sort of, we don't laden it with cream, and, we don't have, it's not like when you go to an Indian restaurant, in Western countries. That stuff isn't good for you. You shouldn't be eating that. It's really, really light curries. So we tend to have that. If I'm having a bad day, if I've gone to see a client, it may be sadly an Impossible Burger or something like that. But, what can you do? You have to eat what is available at restaurants. I have that philosophy. Get the morning right, get all of that done. And then at night, I'll have another 500 milliliters of lemon water. And if I top and tail my day like that, then I kind of give myself a break for lunch and dinner. If I have to go and see a client and I'm eating like an Impossible Burger or something that's unhealthy, it's like my morning was right. I've got all my nutrients in there, so yeah.
Cool. And do you kind of cover like certain categories, generally speaking? Do you cover all these categories, the legumes, the greens, the grains, the fruits, the veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices? You pretty much cover all those?
I think I do. I'm not conscious of it. I don't sit there and go, right, I need to get my legumes in, and now I need to get I'm not that regimented. Maybe I should be, but I'm not that regimented. But the wonderful thing about Indian cooking is, we're the nation we're the original when it came to making vegetables taste nice. So it's very normal for us to be cooking with vegetables and beans and legumes, and chickpeas go into lots of things. And so naturally we're eating all that stuff anyway. And I do feel kind of blessed. Coming from an Indian background, we do have a knack of making, vegetables taste amazing. There's a lot of Indian food that is accidentally vegan, and that says a lot. It's a lot like my next favorite cuisine is Lebanese food, for that reason as well. There's a lot of stuff that they don't even label as vegan. It's just accidentally vegan. It just happens to be vegan, which says a lot about the cuisine. Like you'd struggle in Italy, for example, that they're trying to find an accidentally vegan Italian dish is nigh on impossible because they just stick cream and Parmesan and everything into it. Now there are places where they will do specifically vegan Italian food, but you won't find anything accidentally vegan. So yeah, I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Well, speaking of food, we're at the National Health Association conference, and I think it's dinner time.
I think it is.
It's 5:40. So
Is it 5? Oh my God, how long have we been talking? Ages.
we might as well plug them real quick. And,
Yeah.
And so what brought you here?
Well, Mark, the president, Mark Huberman, the president of the NHA, is now my client, and he's writing his book. It should be incredible. I mean, imagine being vegan for over 70 years. He was born vegan.
Yeah.
How lucky is that to have parents in the early 50s, when he was born in 1951, I believe, in the early 50s, who were so switched on. In the early 50s, when hardly there were any vegans at all, they were so switched on, they were already vegan, and they brought Mark up as a vegan. And that's why he's now in his 70s and fighting fit. And he's now writing his book. So he's now my client. We hope to have him published by the end of the year, fingers crossed. It should come together fast. It's been difficult for him to write a book prior to the conference, because all of his energy has been going into making this conference amazing.
And his magazine.
And his magazine and everything. But he's promised me that once the conference is done, he's going to have room to breathe and he's going to have the headspace. So I'm hoping to get his book out of him within 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
Then I have a team of vegan editors, cover designers, typesetters, formatters, all these incredible people that you need to turn a manuscript into a professional book. And then we're going to hopefully publish his book by the end of this year. So I had to come, and he told me, with all my clients, I want to kind of get under their skin and find out what they're really all about. Yeah. And then he told me he's having this annual conference, and it's their 75th birthday. I just thought, America's not that far from England, really, is it? I should be able to do it. I got a bit of jet lag, but I'm all right now. So
have you seen his interview on my channel?
No, I need to.
Over 100,000 views so far. It's doing pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's a titan. He's one of these people that, and my goal with him is, this organization is incredible. And a plant-based organization that is 75 years old. Like, most people don't even think that veganism existed until the 90s, probably.
Yeah.
So to know that in the late 40s and 50s there was an organization. But what annoys me a little bit, and I like that I'm annoyed by this, is that there's so many people who still don't know about the NHA. Yeah. So my goal is, let's get Mark published. I have a PR and marketing team as well. So I want to get him on TVs. I want to get him on podcasts. I want to get him out there. I want him on, things like Oprah. I want him on, Ellen. Is Ellen still around now? I know she had huge problems last year, and then wasn't she cancelled or something like that? I don't know what's going on with Ellen DeGeneres. But if she's still around, I want him on Ellen. I want him on the biggest stages possible, because everyone in the world should know that there's a plant-based organization that's been going for 75 years. Yeah.
There's another one. Have you heard of American Vegan? Or it's the American Vegan Society. Have you heard of that? It was started by the Denshaws. And Jay Denshaw.
I know the American Vegan Society because we've got a vegan society in the UK as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, is it as old as?
It's about, they started around similar. 1960, somewhere in there.
So a little bit younger.
And it started out, it was originally called Ahimsa. Isn't that cool?
I love
and so they have,
that.
Yeah, and you should, if you ever get a chance, they have a library at the home there where Freya lives, and Ann Denshaw. Well, she doesn't live there, but Freya, she still lives there, and they have a whole library of this publication from the 60s till today.
That's incredible.
It's
I
awesome.
love the fact that it's called Ahimsa as well.
Yeah. And then they also have like a bookstore there with all these books that have been published that are vegan-oriented books. So you'd probably go crazy there.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I'll check them out. I've heard about the American Vegan Society, but I didn't know they've been going for that long.
Yeah. Awesome. And we can find you again online where?
Go to theveganpublisher.com, or you can find me on most of the social media. Just put in Vegan Publisher and you'll find me. I've got a ridiculously long surname. It's unpronounceable, so you'll be able to see me.
Well, if I ever slow down, I might want to hit you up because I've got a book or two ideas.
This is the point. You shouldn't need to slow down to write a book if you hire someone like me. If you're doing it on your own, then you do. It's a task. So you need to, and you're probably thinking, well, how do I find the time to put a book in there? But when you hire someone like me, I kind of show you, I kind of give you the building blocks, and then you just fill it in with your content. So you should be able to do it within a matter of weeks.
Well, we'll see about that.
I promise you. Get in touch.
Well, you've been phenomenal. I'm so glad everybody was like, you really need to interview her, and they pulled us together.
Oh, who said that? I've got to go and say hello.
It was Michael Hardy, and then Riz, Dr. Riz. Riz he's got 3 books in him. He's going to hit me up in a couple of weeks, so we're going to
get the first book out of him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I interviewed both of those guys too. So Michael Hardy's videos got over 10,000 views. He's pretty excited about that. But he's got a little children's book there. I don't know if you saw it on the
he's amazing. I mean, we only met here at the conference, and he was telling me that, he's got a whole political career, and I'm actually being mentored at the moment by a counsellor in England who wants me to stand for the Green Party, hopefully in 5 to 10 years' time. Not yet. So I'm definitely going to stay in touch with Michael, because I need to sort of get an understanding of what local politics is all about, and I think I'm going to need to grow some pretty thick skin. I think I've got quite thick skin as a vegan anyway. We have to, but I think I'm going to need to grow even thicker skin to get into local politics. But yeah, it's something I'd love to do. So I'll definitely be staying in touch with Michael.
What are some of your most popular books?
They're all popular in different ways, So I published nearly 30 authors. So, for example, I've got a lovely lady called Bobby Giudicelli. She's based in New York. She has had over 40 years of bulimia and anorexia. She started starving herself when she was just 11 years old. She came from a physically abusive family. So she started torturing herself. It's a typical story that, kids who come from abusive backgrounds start to almost punish themselves, abuse themselves. And then the only way she stopped starving herself was by becoming whole food plant-based, because she realized that if you only eat whole food plant-based, you literally cannot put more weight on. You literally become the right size that you should be.
Effortlessly.
It's effortlessly. You don't have to count calories. You don't have to do all this counting macros and proteins. You don't do any of that nonsense. Just eat whole food plant-based and you will be at the right size that you're meant to be. And she stopped being sick and she stopped starving herself. So her book is all about teaching people who have this toxic relationship with food, where you're using it to reward yourself and punish yourself, when food really is just fuel. The only thing food should be seen as is fuel.
That's what Mark Huberman said in his interview.
Did he? Well, oh my God! Oh, I'm talking after another great, which is wonderful. But yeah, and yet we imbibe it with all these extra emotions. They are human made. They're not real. We've created this world where we use food as, we eat when we're not even hungry, because it's the right time, or we're with a particular group of people. Or we're rewarding ourselves for something, or we're punishing ourselves sometimes with something. And we've given it this meaning that it doesn't have. It's just fuel. So her book is doing really, really well.
What's it called again?
It's called Freedom from a Toxic Relationship with Food. And then I have a wonderful lady, Tiffany Pagney. She's based in Texas. Now, Tiffany was told when she was born that she will not see beyond the age of 40. She had congenital defects. In her 30s, she went whole food plant-based. She's reversed everything. Wow. So it's sort of like all these doctors telling her, well, you're going to die. And she's like, I'm still here. I'm not dying at all. She's just been on Chef AJ's show because of her book. That episode should land in mid-July, I believe. And she's going around telling Texans, like, you've been lied to. You're having all of these pills and you're being told by doctors, it's just you're getting older, it's middle age. No, you can reverse every single thing. You just need to go whole food plant-based. So so her book is called Protein Inc., because she's debunking this idea of, she's basically saying that this is what the animal agriculture do. They kind of tell you, they've created a whole industry on this lie of protein. But you can get all the protein you need from plants, because that's where animals get it from.
Is she in Texas?
In Texas.
Wow, that's where Garth Davis is, and he wrote Proteinaholic. Have you heard of
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to let her know and everything. So yeah, that's a fantastic book. One of my most recent authors is Kimberly Danner. Her book is Gen Z Plant Powered. She's a child and teen psychologist based in New York, and she's found a link between animal products and teen depression, ADHD, autism, all of it. And she's realized that telling under 25s that they need to become plant-based for physical health doesn't work, because they're invincible at that age. And I remember being that age. I never thought I was really going to get older than 25. 30 was like old person. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be 30. So you think you're invincible at that age. So telling people, telling a 19-year-old that you shouldn't eat red meat because you might get type 2 diabetes when you're 50. 50 is so far ahead from them. They're like, dude, I don't care, But you tell them it's affecting your mental health now. And you have to remember that generation is really feeling mental health problems, especially with the pandemic. They've had to go through this worldwide pandemic at a time when they should be studying and getting their grades and going to school and having their first relationship and all these things. And we've stunted them because of this pandemic. They're really experiencing huge dilemmas when it comes to mental health. So she's found talking to them about becoming plant-based through the mental health aspect makes it, something clicks, and they go, so I'll be less anxious? Yes, you'll be less anxious. So my ADHD will calm down? Yes, your ADHD.
So I'll be less likely to have erectile dysfunction?
Well, you know what? It's absolutely, yeah. I think she actually does talk about a little bit about that in a book. And definitely in Tiffany's book, Protein Inc., there's a great line in there where she says, before you have a clogged heart, you have a clogged penis. Yeah. And a lot of people don't put the two things together. They don't think of heart problems and virility issues as the same thing. It's like, no, virility issues is a clogged penis. Yeah. And you'll get a clogged penis before you get a clogged heart.
Have you heard of the penis book?
No.
It's by Aaron Spitz. He's a doctor. He's a urologist.
I'll have to
He was in Game Changers.
Oh, yes, I did. I've seen Game Changers, of course. Okay.
He's got a book called The Penis Book.
It's true. I mean, it's something I tell all my male friends. It's like, if you're struggling to get it up, like, forget about, feeling like you're not a man or any of that. That's just nonsense. That's just what society puts on you. But if you're struggling to get up, it means that is a warning sign for your heart. Yeah, he talks about so even if you never want to have sex ever again, sort that out, because your heart's next. It's penis first, then heart, or penis first, then head, as in with a stroke. So it's a warning sign, and Tiffany says that in her book. See, I just feel I've published nearly 30 authors, so I'm not going to sit here.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, so but we can find the rest on your website.
Yeah, you can find the rest on my website, or just go to Amazon. My business is called The Vegan Publisher. My publishing imprint, however, is Let's Tell You Story Publishing. That was on purpose. I didn't want it to be The Vegan Publisher, simply because a lot of my clients are writing to a non-vegan audience. We're not practicing, we're not preaching to the choir here. Like, vegans are already vegans. You're already wonderful. We don't need to tell you this stuff. You already know. We're trying to convince the non-vegans why they need to become vegan. And if they see the vegan publisher splashed on the back of the book, some of them will instantly go, I'm not going to read this. There's instant, I don't want to be a vegan, because they've associated veganism with, activism and, burning things and whatever they're trying to stereotype us with. So my publishing imprint is Let's Tell You Story Publishing, which is very inoffensive. So you can actually just go onto Amazon and put in Let's Tell You Story Publishing, and all of my authors will come up.
Excellent. Well, maybe I can interview some of those authors sometime.
Absolutely. They would love it. That's why they wrote the book. They want to get their book out there to as many people as possible. I've had, a lot of my clients have been on TV and radio, and they do this because they want to get the message out loud and clear. So absolutely, that would be amazing.
Well, you're amazing, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And I think it's probably time for us to go eat.
I'm hungry. Let's go and eat.
Good job.